Hey guys, my name is Ashton Gleckman. Welcome back, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Mummy soundtrack composed by Brian Tyler. Now, if you guys haven't already, I just did a Wonder Woman score analysis last week, which you guys can find on my channel. And also, I have the Behind the Scores series, and there's over 10 hours of film music analysis. So what I want to go ahead and do is take a look, first of all, at the orchestration for the film and the way that the orchestra is set up for this film in specific. Then I want to take a look at my sort of initial thoughts, and then take a look at some of the cues that I really enjoyed. And then I want to look and analyze the two main themes of the film and look at how they're used. So the first thing I wanted to chat about is the orchestra in this film. So what you'll automatically notice is the intensity of our low end, right? We have 9 basses, 12 cellos. Usually we have a couple less cellos than we would violas, but we're at an equal number with that. And so all three, the second violins, violas, and cellos are all equal in number, which is quite rare, but for this film, definitely you could tell the intensity of that low end when you're listening to the score, and it really works very, very well. For the woodwinds, we have 3 flutes, 1 oboe, 2 clarinets, 1 bassoon. It's not very common that you're only going to have one, like 1 oboe, 1 bassoon, and 2 clarinets. Usually you'll have a bigger ensemble for the woodwind section. But it's interesting that they chose to go with just one of those instruments. And then we have 7 horns. So we have a big punchy horn section, 4 trumpets, which is fairly normal in an orchestration setup. We have 3 trombones, and 1 is assigned to the bass trombone, which is, again, pretty normal. We have 1 tuba, and because the tuba is so incredibly intense, it can sort of break through the orchestra, and its presence can be felt. You don't necessarily need more than 1. It's not really needed at all. And that's why you'll find in most setups in orchestration, you'll find that there's only 1 tuba player. So next we have 1 timpani player, we have 4 percussion players, 1 harp, 1 duduk. And for our choir, we have 8 soprano, 8 mezzo alto, 8 tenor, and 8 basses, which makes up a good 32-piece kick butt choir section, which is used very, very well throughout the film. So you guys probably already know Brian Tyler by work like this. And like this. But The Mummy touches on a very different aspect of Brian Tyler's skill, which is writing in a very awesome historical golden age of film composition style, sort of like a very Wagnerian, very Goldsmith, Steiner, heavy King Kong-ish badassism style, you know what I mean? And so there's a whole lot of, especially in this film, there's a whole lot of really interesting melodic stuff, especially in harmonic minor, because it's a movie about Egypt and mummies and monsters, so why not have that type of stuff going on? One thing that I really loved about the score is the great use of the wind section. So it's very uncommon nowadays that composers will fully utilize the wind section. We think of the wind section to be like a very sort of John Williams-y soaring, runs and stuff like that, but it can actually be used in a multitude of ways. And I love especially how the early composers like Jerry Goldsmith used a lot of the woodwinds in a very great way. So another thing about the score that's pretty cool is the way for which Brian Tyler utilized the choir, and I also touch on that in the next thing, which is the choral clusters throughout the score, especially in the battle scenes. The choir is written for so extremely well in this score, and that's one of my favorite aspects of this score, especially listening to it. There's almost like low drones throughout the whole score that the choral presence really creates, you know what I mean? And that's a very, very cool sort of natural drone that Brian Tyler created. And also another thing to be noted about the score is its cello soundscape. So there's actually somebody who was specifically brought onto the film to create soundscapes via the cello, and there's a lot of cool stuff with that. And if you listen very, very closely, you can sort of hear the presence of the cello in a very sort of odd, manipulated way, which works really well also as a sort of low drone-ish type thing. And then, of course, the main theme. So Brian Tyler is a thematic composer, meaning one of the first things that he does in any film is take a look at how themes can be used to help describe characters, settings, and overall ideas in the film. Of course, in Lord of the Rings, you had the ring theme, and then you had the fellowship theme, and you had all these different themes describing different aspects of the film. And Brian Tyler is exceptional in the way for which he uses themes to describe specific things and specific feelings. I was talking about the Fast and Furious. Of course, you have that rhythmic theme, dun 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 dun, right? Of course, you have the Now You See Me theme, da 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 da, right? And then all the Marvel, stuff. And he's very, very good with themes, and the way for which he uses them throughout the film is also pretty spectacular. That's something definitely to be admired about his style. And it's definitely something that helps contribute to the whole old style film score-esque thing that he was trying to go for in this score with your sort of old Max Steiner, King Kong, epic brass and winds orchestration. That's definitely what the score possesses, and something that I really loved when listening to the score on its own, away from the film. And so yeah. So some of the cues that I really enjoyed were The Secret of the Mummy, especially because it had that unstable, faint, choir, drone-ish type stuff that I was talking about. I'll go ahead and play that right here. The next cue that I really loved was Egypt's Next Great Queen, which I think captures this sort of the darkness and the rich personality and character of our main villain in the film, Amanette, and it goes very, very far at the beginning to describe how she was before she really turned dark. So, you know, before she had these dark aspirations about taking over and everything, and then it goes into the more darkish Egypt, you know, sounding stuff, and I'll go ahead and play a little bit of that right now. Next thing is Concourse of the Undead, and I really loved this sort of uncomfortable string glissando things at the beginning. So one of the cues that I really loved in the film was Between Life and Death, which brings back Nick's main theme, but also has this very sort of epic finale conclusion type feel, and here's that cue. And then my favorite action cue in the film is definitely Forward Momentum. It has a lot of forward momentum. Alrighty, so now that that portion is done, let's go ahead and get right into the two main themes in the film and taking a look at how those themes are built and how they're utilized throughout the film. So first of all, let's take a look at our main theme for Amanette. So there's that theme. So of course we have the, right, and we have this. So when the theme first comes in, it has this, right, and then it of course repeats that in the winds, and then of course it imitates in the Glock high up in the orchestra, so it actually just keeps building and rising and rising. And Brian Tyler is really good with using sort of imitation and taking one idea and developing it and making it something bigger. And then he has this, these sort of puncturing chords come in, or, right? And then he brings in that minor sixth. But one thing he does end up doing is he actually takes this main line that he introduces at the beginning of the piece and that he imitates in both the winds and the Glock, and he puts that as sort of like a counter line with the main theme, which is introduced right here. Now once the main theme comes in, these sort of like this minor sixth little thing that happens, that sort of leaves until it comes back, because if you were to have it there, it creates a bit of clashing. It's not that great, so here's like what it would sound like. Right? And then, of course, this note, that leading tone gets brought into the next measure, and we sort of bring back that minor sixth thing there. And this just keeps repeating. Right? That just keeps repeating, and that's still down here. Right? And then we sort of have this. And then we make that B flat minor. So what I really love about that thing is he takes that minor sixth and he adds a different harmonization to it. That B flat minor right there. So what he's doing here is he's actually ascending in thirds, which is very sort of common for this sort of dark, gritty type stuff. Right? But he's adding this sort of minor sixth type cool thing right here. So that works pretty well. And then it goes to G and it brings back our main theme. Then back to that B flat minor thing that we had going on over here. When we went to that minor sixth, then we harmonized it differently and we got the... And that sort of sounds pretty... So now we're going to be talking about Nick's theme, which is featured in 17 different cues in the film, and of course I'd say it's probably the second most prominent theme, compared to like this sort of Aminette theme, which is the most prominent theme in the film. So let's go ahead and play that, and then we'll take a look at the theme and the way for which he sort of develops it. And then what he does is he sort of makes it more rich by adding some harmony and adding some more interesting characteristics and splitting the note values in half so that it moves a little bit quicker. So of course the second variation is pretty playful. It has that sort of Dorian, right? So that's pretty nice. And then for the third, variation, he goes into something a little bit more epic, you know what I mean? So with that B sus, it gets a little bit more dramatic there. But yeah, so Nick's theme is featured a lot in the soundtrack if you listen to it. Like I said, 17 different cues throughout the whole entire film. But yeah, so those are just like the two main themes in the film, which I think really encapsulates a lot of what the film really includes. So yeah, so thanks so much for joining me on this little inside look into the Mummy soundtrack composed by Brian Tyler. I really enjoyed it. A lot of cool, interesting stuff going on in the score, orchestrationally, harmonically, and great use of the winds, great use of the choir, and really, really cool themes. So yeah, thanks so much, and I'll see you guys later.